What's happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of One Big Fire. And I'm excited to jump in today. We've got Mr. Albie Stasic in from the west side of the 216 joining us. And then we've got Mr. Tim Stout in the house. Tim, welcome.
Appreciate you having me, guys.
Yeah, man. So give us a little background, man. I'm excited to chat with you anytime that somebody's, brings some type of a discipline into their life, and the whole how you do anything is how you do everything kind of cascades and carries over. And definitely having the martial arts background, but I think just doing anything hard for a consistent period of time just starts to reshape and reframe your mindset. And we were joking, some of these clowns that we're probably going to touch on a little bit earlier today, they need to come roll around with you for a little bit.
One way to get them, that's for sure.
So talk to us, man. So what life before real estate and kind of led you up to present day here with us?
Okay. A quick overview. I'm from a super small town in East Tennessee. Like 3 red lights, 1 high school, like small town. Everybody knows everybody. Grew up there, loved it, poor, but loved my area. I started boxing at a young age, fought all the way up through the ranks. Did extremely well with that. And then I found out mixed martial arts, started grappling, kickboxing, had a few amateur fights, went pro super early, fought pro up there probably for 4 or 5 years. And then I had an opportunity. I was actually supposed to go to Thailand to teach. And I was going to go teach grappling at this one of these kickboxing camps. And then they did something where they revoked all the work visas. So I didn't get to go. And then like the day after, I got a call from a guy in Peachtree City, Georgia. And he says, I want to open an MMA gym on the south side of Atlanta. He goes, but I want to do it different. And he says, most people, when they open these gyms, they have a kickboxing coach, a Thai boxing coach, MMA coach, boxing coach, kids coach, cardio kickboxing coach. And I was like, okay, so we want one person that can do it all. And he says, we're hearing through the grapevine that you're the guy that can teach about everything. I'm like, okay. And they offered me this amount of money, which I thought was obscene because at that time I was working in like juvenile detention. So the money that I was making, was quite a bit higher to teach, fighting. So I'm like, I don't know about this. So I remember going down here and looking at it and really loving the area. And went back home and I'm like, well, my dad's going to talk me out of going. He wants me at home. It's like 6-hour drive. I was like, Dad, I said, here's what they're offering. And he goes, go. He goes, if you don't like it, you can come back. And I'm like, okay. So come down here, opened that, taught there for several years, continued to fight. Opened my gym, still have a gym to this day. It's 16 years old, I think. And when I decided to retire from fighting, I wanted to be in sales. I wanted to get paid for what you do, not what you're expected to do or what you're supposed to do. And I didn't know what I would sell. I had a friend of mine who owned a car lot. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll do that. I didn't know. And one day I was teaching a cardio kickboxing class and had about probably 30 ladies in it, a few guys sprinkled in. And these three girls come in off the street, want to try the class, and they drove nice cars. They were dressed nice. They smelled nice, everything that success is. And I said, what do you ladies do? And they're like, oh, we work in real estate. I'm like, okay, it's amazing. Still never thought about it. 10 minutes in the workout, they quit because it was hard. They didn't quit because they were tired. They quit because it was hard. And I'm like, I remember texting my wife on my BlackBerry, and I'm like, I'm going to sell real estate. And she goes, do you think you can sell real estate? I said, I don't know, but I know I can outwork them. She goes, you're sure as hell outwork them. That's how it started.
Wow. It is, man. It's wild, right?
Yeah.
And being able to just to have that and you learn so much about yourself doing anything hard, like in that experience right there. So, I guess, Tim, prior to that and kind of going through that whole process, touch on the hard thing, right? And the hard work thing a little bit and really, having a background in MMA your entire life, right? Growing up at early age and just being in it, how it just shapes your mind. You just you see things differently, you think differently, you operate differently, you behave differently. And just how important it is having that type of discipline.
The extreme discipline it's crucial for any type of success in anything. It doesn't matter what you're doing. I remember when I first started fighting, because I wasn't the most talented, I wasn't the most athletic, I definitely wasn't the smartest. My best attributes when I was fighting was I was tough and I hit really hard. And that is a recipe to get your ass kicked because you don't quit. Because the whole time, like even when I'm losing, all I got to do is land one punch. That's it, land one punch. So I'm taking it to land one punch. So you don't know to give up. But doing the hard stuff, like most people know who they are, but I think it's way more important to know who you're not. And when you're fighting, you realize who you're not and who you are at a high level, and you can grow on it. I was training with one of my guys this morning. I took him down against the wall and I'm hitting him. And he's like, man, I just feel like I got my butt kicked the whole time. I was like, this time last year, I said, you would have tried to quit. I was like, you become the person who doesn't quit now. That's the best attribute you could ever learn. I'd rather you continue to get your butt kicked every day for the rest of your life and have learned not to ever give up. That's going to take you further in life than beating up a 46-year-old retired fighter. I was like, that is the strongest attribute. I think when you start learning about yourself, you know what triggers in your head about quitting or stopping or pushing forward. But what it taught me was I don't have to have all the talent in the world. I just have to outwork you. And I outwork you in learning, reading, coaches, mentorship, courses, books, podcasts, and then doing the actual work. You can't be beat. Like you can't be beat.
Can I unpack that? Because I wrote it down, at least tried to write a lot of that down, Tim. But the thing that is just keeps being ingrained in my brain is that the biggest, there's all these things they talk about: skill, being highly skilled versus being tenacious. And I believe tenacity beats skill. Because it's not the highest skilled person. Because if the highest skilled person isn't tenacious and they quit, the person who's not quitting, who's less skilled, going to win. And that's especially in real estate. But what you said, I want you to unpack. Know what you're not, more so than what you know what your strengths are. Know were you kind of going with know what your weaknesses are going into it, know and accept what those are so you can backfill them. Like, could you explain a little bit deeper what you meant by that?
And first I'm going to touch on the tenacity part, because that's on my shoulder. I have can't teach tough. And because I can tell people, like, I can teach anyone to fight. I can teach anyone martial arts. I can't teach everybody to fight, because you got to have that within inside of you. And you're talking about the tenacity. I would rather take a fighter that is a 5 out of 10 that has grit and will never give up over a skilled fighter that's a 10 out of 10, because my guy will beat him in a long enough runway. I'll get him conditioned enough. The pressure will be too hard, and then they'll fold that other guy. So that tenacity is super crucial.
Yeah.
So knowing who you're not, it gives me two big pluses, two big opportunities. One, I can backfill it with knowledge. Like, I can understand it. I can explain it. I can become sharper in those areas, because, you're only strong as your weakest link. And just like a sword, it only cuts where it's sharp. So you have to sharpen where you're not sharp. You have to sharpen where you're not sharp as well. But also, once you get into building a business, is like everybody, I do some coaching too, and everybody wants to, I'm going to hire an ISA. I'm going to hire this. I'm like, you want to hire an ISA because you hate making phone calls. The phones are where you make your money. Like, what are you not good at? We're not having this conversation if you're horrible on the phone. You're not building a business. So trying to teach them what they're weak at, because a lot of people want to leverage what they want to leverage what they don't like. And it's like, no, you leverage what you're not good at. That's how you strengthen the whole group.
That makes sense. Yeah. And in the ring, versus real estate, you're fighting for your life. It's your life on the line. So it's, no pun intended, vitally important when you're in that octagon or ring to know what your weaknesses are, more so than what your strengths are, because you have to backfill those weaknesses with your strengths, is what you're saying. So, like, I was literally just on a phone with a recruit yesterday, and he's with a brokerage local, and he's like, well, I was telling him about what we do to help them grow. We build you a funnel out. We build your automation out in your CRM. We coach you on how to convert these leads. I mean, this is what we've been doing for years and years and years. And he's like, yeah, well, my brokerage has a similar lead generation system that we can plug into. It sounds very, very similar. And the thing is like, he wasn't consistent. I said, explain to me your experience with that lead gen system. What have you done? What have you tested? And he didn't really, he's like, well, I tried it for a little bit and then I quit, and that's all I needed to know at that point, is that he's not being coached for the long game. He's not being coached on how to be consistent and do the boring shit every single day, because that is the number one thing. When we talk to high producers like you, just high achievers, it's the same thing every time. It's do the same boring stuff, go to the same boring gym, lift the same boring weights, hit the same boring speed bag, whatever it is. I mean, after a while, it gets boring. But
sexy about success.
Keep doing it anyway. It doesn't mean you stop. And that's the thing that people just can't figure out. Eat the same boring food, right?
You're 100%
hear it every single time. So great distinction, Tim. Love it.
Tim, taking that experience and just everything that compounded in the habits and the discipline, carried right over into real estate. Like what was kind of for you? And because I know there's some lessons in there for a lot of agents that are struggling right now with on the real estate. And there's a ton of agents that are struggling, and obviously lacking, like you said, avoiding doing the thing that's necessary. But like, just from your experience and being able to carry over everything that you brought from MMA, running MMA business, being able to carry that over into real estate, like what are some of the key foundation that you like, hey, if you really want to thrive in any type of market condition, this is what you need to stay grounded. This is the foundation.
You can have results or you can have excuses. You can't have both. And I press that with my guys, like all the time, my team. It's like, you have to, everybody says real estate's a number game. It is. But I have some people who have to make 500 calls to get 5 appointments. My team leader in Tennessee makes 30 in a given 5. When he talks to somebody, he's good. Why he's not making 500 calls? And he'll sell 50 houses this year. Like he's crushing it. But it's like you have to put in the time and the effort, because I'm not a very social guy. Like I'm not the friendliest appearance looking guy, because I don't smile a lot, and I'm always, if I see you out, I'm trying to assess you. Like, are you a threat? Like, am I going to have to deal with you? And I'm not all, how are you guys? I'm not that guy. So I've had to learn that. And what was the question? I got off on a tangent.
Yeah, I just think looking at what's carried you and grounded you, the foundation, how does that from you coming from a teacher standpoint, being able to tie and pour back into agents right now that are struggling. It's like, hey, just ground it in these 3 foundational things, and let's do that for a year, right? And then we can pull our head up and see kind of where the results are, as long as we're not making excuses and these 3 things are happening.
With the foundation is, I come from a place when I made a mistake, I got punched in the mouth or choked or arm, So for me to do massive action with real estate, it wasn't a big deal. I could call you, you could tell me whatever you wanted to say. You're not going to hurt my feelings. And I understand that. So that helped me a lot. I think the only 3 things that matters in real estate is prospecting, follow-up, and appointments. That is absolutely it. And you just have to figure out what type of prospecting are you willing to be committed to for a year. And the only thing that matters through prospecting is the amount of appointments you get. And the same thing with follow-up. The fortune's in the follow-up. We all know that. So my guys, I like the phone because I got a big social media following. I've got 400,000 some people on Facebook. I've got the big social medias. But that's one-to-many marketing, but most people don't have that ability to do that. Mm-hmm. So they need to be very effective at one-to-one marketing, because that's where you build relationships. That's where you build rapport. Every salesperson I've met, every salesperson that you've met always says, if I get in front of them, I'm going to close them. Like, everybody can do that. Can you get in front of them from the phone? That's where your skill set needs to be. Or meeting people out on the, like yesterday we taught a class on how to, if you reached out to 3 different people a week, you saw them in the gas station line, you saw them at Chick-fil-A, like you saw them and you introduce yourself, you ask about them, what do they do? How can I help your business? It's going to come around and you're going to be able to say, I sell real estate. Like if you know anybody looking to buy and sell and invest, let me help you. And just going over the extra, but it's like you said, it's the boring, monotonous activities that you just continue to not give up on. And you have to be committed to mastery. And that's when your day gets easier. I do zero prospecting and I'll sell 60 some houses this year while running a team. And I've got a big investing arm too, that we're doing a lot of business over there just because of my social media and the fact that when I see people, I know how to help them the best because of my experience.
It's the thing. It's the number one thing that I see agents that are thriving versus that are in getting themselves in deep water is their social media presence and consistency over time. Those that have been consistent 18, 24 months, been really consistent, pouring in, adding value, just either, I mean, obviously, right. It's educational or entertainment or a mixture, maybe a little bit of inspiration, but staying consistent with it. They're doing really, really well. Right. Doing really well with their business.
They want to be the social media star more than they want to be a real estate agent. So you're competing against that too. So that's difficult, but it's commitment because people are going to burn out so fast. You just have to continue to put things out there that people are want to see. When they think real estate, they think of you. Yeah.
There was something that I wanted to ask you, and then Al, we can jump into a couple headlines. You know, I mean, we can sit here and talk to Tim all day. Just fascinated about discipline and just being, you know, how that carries over. I remember one of the best stories, and just kind of understanding kind of our role as leaders. And I think it was stemmed from kind of one of the ground rules inside of Frank Shamrock's studios, and it's the plus minus and equal equation. And saying that when you come in, you got to find somebody to look up to. You got to find a mentor. You got to find somebody that's going to, you're going to connect with, that's going to help you take that next level. And then you've got a minus. You got somebody you're going to be that mentor to. You're going to teach, right? And just always say with agents, like, well, man, I just got licensed. Well, how did you get licensed? There's other people that are wanting to get licensed. How can you help them, get licensed? So there's always somebody that you can lead and mentor. And I know that's foundational throughout any of the MMA practices, is that, hey, part of your requirements to level up to the next, you got to give back, right? You got to teach, just where you're at in the process. You got to go help the little guys. You got to help them, you got to give time, right, back to them. You got to be a mentor. And then the equal, right? We got to find that accountability partner that we're going to call each other out day in and day out. We're showing up together. We're texting each other at the end of the day. Did you do what you said you were going to do? And that really stuck with me. And so for you being in that role for so long, and you triggered a couple things from Bet David, from Patrick Bet David. And one of my favorite reels he put out last year was the 3 types of people, right? Are you interested? Are you committed, or are you obsessed? Right. So just kind of evaluating kind of where you're at within the game of real estate right now. And we talked about this at our quarterly event last week at Kitchen Table. And one of the smartest dudes I know, he's the best COO, small business entrepreneur, operator that I've ever seen. COO, he is the best. And he is also one of the smartest guys I've ever met in my life. And I take notes every time I sit down with him. And that simple distinction, he goes, fuck. He goes, I wasn't even interested. How can I be committed if I'm not even interested in what it is? And so, like, even the smartest, right? Little things like click, but just getting in that. One question I have for you, and this came from Bet David as well. He talked about it a couple of weeks ago. He was having a conversation with his boys. And it was around the type of advice you get, right? He talked about the 20%, the 1%, and the 0.1%. And there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people on social media, they'll give you that to be in the top 20% advice, right? Show up every day, work hard, like, hey, master your scripts, get on the phones, do your follow-up, set the appointments, right? You can get to top 20% just off of the advice that we just given in the first 15 minutes of this talk. But as you work with people at so many different levels, like to get to, like, people don't understand the difficulty for what you've been able to accomplish in MMA to be able to get to that level, right? Remember when Connor came on the scene, he only cared about 3 things, and one of them was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, right? Like, people don't understand. Like, he wanted to be a billionaire, win 2 world titles, and have a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, think about that. Crazy ass Conor McGregor cares about 3 major goals, and one is to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So to get to that level, what I want to hear from you that real estate agents need to understand right now in today's market, this is day one of Q2 of 2025. What's the 1% advice? And then what's the 0.1% advice? And David was giving an example. He's like, you can't be whatever you want to be, son. You'll never play center in the NBA. You're not 7'3", right? Like you're gonna be 5'8". Like, deal with it. I'm sorry, I can't give you that advice. You can't be whatever you want to be. And that's the difference in the 20% to the 1%, and then even the 0.1% advice. What would you be saying to agents that want to be in the top 1%, and then even another step further to be the 0.1% in the market? What do they need to hear?
Wow. If you want to be the top 1%, there's two types of in real. We're talking about real estate.
Yeah.
There's two types of marketing in anything that you do. And I call it there's the tugboat marketing, and there's the lighthouse marketing. Tugboat goes out, grab a boat, goes out, grab a boat. That is 98% of all real estate agents, their entire thing. And then their entire career. Then you come across a few agents who they run the attraction model. People come to them. They run the lighthouse marketing. I think to be at the 1%, you have to be able to be the person that's attracting the leads, attracting the deals, attracting the talent. You have to be able to create that. And now with social media, it's easier than anything. One of my mentors tells me that you are best suited to teach the person you were 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that helps me because I knew what I was. I was hardworking, but I was ignorant. So I had to become that because I realized who I wasn't. And I think the 1% is you have to understand leverage, or the 0.1%, you have to understand leverage, because in this game, it's like you can be a top 1% realtor by yourself. But to get like to that elite level, you have to be able to leverage, and you have to be able to attract the right talent. You have to be able to educate them, train them. And, anybody that's in the team building business realizes that you're going to have attrition. You're going to build somebody up for them just to leave and compete against you. And you can't be mad at them, because that should be what you want for them. Mm. And that's a difficult place to be mentally, is to build someone up that's going to eventually compete with you, because they all will.
Mm. I love that. That's awesome.
It's the exact reason why I mean, it's probably the biggest reason why I joined EXP and moved my brokerage over. And John and I, we went down the rabbit hole for 6 days, figuring out, like, is this the right thing to do? We just opened this brokerage up 3 years ago, 2.5, whatever.
And we did same thing.
And we're going to move it into this company. No one's heard of EXP, but it was from what you just said. It was because I was coaching my competition up to go out and compete with me out in in the field. And I'm like, man, if I had a better model, I could coach all these people up and they'll never leave the nest. They'll just stay right where we're at, and I'll help them grow, because it wasn't like, people that were leaving weren't upset or mad at me for something. It wasn't like a breakup. It was like, hey, I need to spread my wings and grow. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I could do it under your current business model. Mm-hmm. And so they were seeking out a business model that they could expand and grow. And now we found that with EXP. So I just wanted to point that out, that was exactly the reason why we're here right now, why I'm on with you, is for that reason. Yeah, I did want to. Can we talk a little bit about some current events?
Headlines? Yes, I do, and I want to get Tim's perspective on a couple of these. So yes,
yeah.
Fire away.
Love it. Yeah. So there's one that this just made me laugh. Compass's clients, they and you have to wonder if Compass, or they had to have gotten their clients together and say, hey, you should maybe file a class action lawsuit. I can't imagine any normal seller, someone who they're not in real estate, they hired an agent to sell their home and they put it on the MLS, and someone coming up and convincing them. It's like saying, you put your home on the MLS. I'll get to the punch is this. They're basically trying to put a class action lawsuit. They're trying to recruit enough home sellers that sold their home with a real estate agent that had put their home on an MLS system, meaning exposing it out to the masses, that actually hurt their values and they got less money because of it versus a strategy that's well known as a pocket listing, which where the broker just keeps that listing off of the MLS. They pop a sign in the yard, or sometimes they don't, and they basically just expose it to their small network of agents that they know, usually within their own brokerage, so they can double side the deal. That's usually why I've seen people use pocket listings. Now you can make the argument and say, well, if they're a celebrity type person, someone who has a large public figure that doesn't want the public knowing, like, hey, this is my house, it's for sale here, look at all the pictures on the inside. I get that to a certain degree, but when you think about, like, that is the most, that's less than a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of, like, 0.1% of your sellers that are out there. Everyone else, they're normal folks like us. We're not celebrities. We want our home marketed for the highest price. We want the most amount of money in the shortest period of time. That's typically what 99.9% of sellers want. And then you have this little sliver of people that says, yeah, I'd like you to sell my house for the highest amount, but I don't want everyone to know about it. Yep. It's like trying to sell, let's just say, a Ferrari. Okay. You got a Ferrari. It's a nice Ferrari. Your house is, I'm comparing it to, like, maybe your house is like a Ferrari. You have a Ferrari and you want to sell it. And you decide, here, I don't want everyone to really know about it. I don't want to put it online. I don't want all the buyers to know about it. I'm going to put it out on my front lawn with a little sign that says, and I'm just going to let anyone who drives by know about my car for sale. That will get me my highest price. Everyone knows that that's absolutely ridiculous to think that you're going to command the highest price. Now, could you? Sure. Anything's possible. You could maybe get someone just, by luck, drive by my side street here, away from all the rest of the traffic, and maybe I would get a high price, but more than likely, I'm not going to fetch the highest price because not all the entire consumer pool isn't even aware that it's for sale. So the lawsuit is trying to get enough sellers together to say, yeah, I got less money for my house because I put it on the MLS. Tim, what do you think about this story?
I've had a few clients who didn't want it listed. Mostly, they're going through a divorce and they don't want everybody to know their business. Small cases like you're saying. But this goes back to one of the golden rules of marketing. If I have 100 pizzas and one buyer, the buyer decides the price. But if I have one pizza and 100 buyers, then whoever makes the pizza describes the price. The more people that I can put my property in front of, common sense tells me I'm going to make more money. So I think when you're allowing things not to get syndicated or on IDX websites or feeds, I think you're limiting the amount of buyers. And if you limit the amount of buyers, I think you are limiting your price.
Yeah.
Because competition is what drives everything. And if there's no marketing, there's no competition.
Yeah. The amount of just litigation is really getting out of control.
So I guess my question here too, Al, and Tim chime in, like, I keep coming back, right? Because KT and how I operate is on the theory of constraints, right? That's that's the way I see things, right? I see constraints in everything, and where is the constraint? Remove the constraint. And that really comes back to, what's the damn goal? Because every time the goal changes, the constraint changes. So, like, what is the real goal here? Like, what is the intent? I mean, at the end of the day, what are they trying to accomplish by doing all of this?
I think Compass is, I think, because I worked at Compass before I went independent. And Robert is a super sharp guy. Like, there's a plan. If he's doing something, there's a plan. The dude's sharp. And had dinner with him a few times. Like, he's sharp. In my opinion, I think it comes down to that if they can control their own listings internally, then they make more money. Because they don't have to sell them outside. That's the only thing that makes sense for me. But I got a small brain, so there's a place somewhere.
No, you're right, Tim. You're spot on, actually. I mean, the only entity that could benefit from pocket listings is the broker that's pocketing the listing. Howard Hanna here in my market, they've been trying to do it for years. Mm-hmm. And here's the funny thing is, I'm reading this statement. In a statement to Inman, Compass says about this lawsuit, we're proud to support Washington homeowners who are asking the right question. This is the question that they feel is the right question. Why are they the only ones in America without a choice in how to sell their homes? End quote. Now, everyone think about that. Everyone has a choice. Everyone has a choice. You can choose to sell for sale by owner. You could choose to call a discount brokerage that'll sell it for, $1 or whatever. I mean, I worked for a brokerage selling a home for $595, selling a home for $997. There's the discount brokerage is not a new thing. Consumers have choices. They can call another broker that's a full service broker that's going to charge a full fee. It's the same thing in, there's discounted legal services, or you can pay an actual skilled attorney to represent you in whatever you need legal representation in. And so the question isn't the right question, because we know the answer to the question is everyone has a choice. No one's got a gun to their head that says you need to put your home in the MLS. In fact, I think it is MLS specific, because in Cleveland, where I'm from here, our MLS has always had a clause that states if the seller doesn't want their home put into the MLS, they sign on the listing agreement that says seller is requesting no MLS input. Because if we don't have that signature from the seller, we actually could get fined as a realtor, that's a member of the MLS, because we didn't put it in within 72 hours or whatever the rule is. We've always had the option of them opting out of that. Now, there might be other MLSs that don't have that opt out. Maybe
I don't think we do. I don't think we have it.
So you don't have like your sellers they have to have it in the MLS in Atlanta.
As far as I know, I've not seen anything that ever says you didn't have to.
Okay. Yeah, we've had that option. So maybe that's where the confusion for me is, because we've always had that option. We've had a rule that it has to be put in within 72 hours, but a seller could opt out of it, at least in our MLS. So maybe that's the case in Washington, and why they're trying to, sue them there. But even if they're forced to do it, they still have an option of going for sale by owner. I don't know of one state that has made it illegal to go for sale by owner. And so the lawsuit, I feel, is frivolous. I feel it's a waste of time, money, resources that can be put to other things. And I really would love to see, some accountability in this, our tort laws. In other words, when you file a lawsuit like this, now they haven't filed yet, in fairness, they're just trying to build up enough people to see if they can do the class action. They should be able to reverse sue if they lose for all the legal fees of all the, the defendants that are having to defend themselves from these frivolous lawsuits. What are your guys' thoughts?
I agree. I mean, I agree with you.
I do too, man. It just feels like
you need to have a legit case. And if you don't, then they need to be ramifications and everything, not just real estate based. Like, because there's so many people that are just so frivolous, throwing things out there and trying to sue people and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. That's what I feel. And I think it's a couple different things, right? I think you got attorneys trying to push, see where they can grasp and make something happen. And then obviously be Encompass kind of what is, definitely going along and like, what's their intent? Al, switch over a little bit to the other legal thing that popped up that we were chatting about, back to the sweetheart deal, talking about like, what are they trying to do?
So Weichert and EXP, we're negotiating settlements on the Gibson case last year. And for whatever reason, negotiations broke down. It says the companies instead mediated nationwide settlements with attorneys for plaintiffs in Hooper, agreeing to pay $8.5 million and $34 million respectively. The Missouri court is currently weighing claims by the Gibson plaintiffs that EXP and Weichert engaged in reverse auction, or a legal strategy in which a defendant negotiates a settlement with attorneys who are willing to accept settlements amounts less than the attorneys in a separate case. So what I'm in English, how I'm interpreting that is that they negotiated a settlement for the same case with a different set of attorneys that were representing a different set of plaintiffs, and that carried over to the to the Gibson case, and they're fighting that, I guess. That's how and I could be wrong, by the way, but that's how I'm interpreting it, because it is a little bit confusing. But they negotiated a great deal, and then they're like, whoa. You need to be paying way more than that, even though both sides agreed to it. I think, the plaintiffs were like, wait, they're paying all this over here. We negotiated, too low of an amount. We want a redo, basically. And, I don't know how you guys interpret it, but that's how I do. And it's, again, more ridiculous lawsuits just being flown.
Absolutely ridiculous. It made me laugh. Rogan said something the other day talking about, it's just his obsession with pool. And it's like, we're playing $100 tables and I beat you 5 in a row. And then now you want to come in and all, a 500 table to get it all back. Like in one game. No, it ain't that way. You got beat. Like deal with it. And that's what it feels like, is like they got beat and they just don't want to deal with it. That, they're over there pouting, kicking the rug. And it's like, poor losers. Absolutely poor losers, what it sounds like.
And it's horrible, because I hope they didn't have the same lawyers that negotiated that following this lawsuit, because obviously
it's actually in your backyard, Tim. So what it's saying is that Hooper defendants, EXP, Weichert, and Mark Spain Real Estate, and the Atlanta Communities Real Estate, have motions for preliminary approval of their settlements. It's currently pending in the Georgia court. And according to Cohen, the Gibson plaintiffs won't suffer any harm if they aren't allowed to transfer the case, because they'll be able to fully litigate their issue during the court settlement approval process, including by raising objections to settlements on reverse auction grounds. So what I think is happening is they want to switch jurisdictions to help their chances of to getting more money out of this thing. And the court said, no, we're not allowing that.
What's Mark Spain have to do with it?
He was part of it as well, but he wasn't mentioned in the headline, but apparently he is one of the plaintiffs with us that agreed to the settlement originally. So interesting stuff.
So, one last item. I know we've been talking about this, Al, and Tim, love to get your take on it. We talked a couple weeks ago about when Rocket acquired Redfin, and we know it was pretty crazy. Same day the announcement was same day Mike Del Pree released his weekly newsletter, and he was talking about, right, we've all been in pursuit of the Holy Grail, right, of just complete everything in house. And we've been working on that for 20 years, right? We've all been trying to chase the Holy Grail to where you control the whole consumer experience, and now really starting to see it play out. And so interesting to see, Redfin's move with acquiring, feels like at an extreme discount of going to go get Redfin, and then coming back here on top and acquiring Mr. Cooper Group. Excuse me, for $9.4 billion, puts them at managing $2.1 trillion in mortgages, basically serving 1 in 6 mortgages in the U.S. at this point. So with that move, and I would love to get. I had Kurt Sewell. I asked him. I got his take on it, and the gentleman that always comes on the top of on whatever Rocket does, owns whatever the other largest mortgage company. They're both there in Detroit. Owner of the Suns. Gilbert buys the Cavs, and he buys the Suns. So he's like always trying to one top. So it's going to be really interesting to see a couple more of these moves as they kind of jockey in position to try to ultimately, take over the whole experience, and getting, especially on the mortgage side of things, my take, they're trying to get to the consumer, get to the buyer, get that done before it's handed off to the real estate agent, as we're seeing a lot of the handoffs, on a high referral basis back to, those opportunities. So like, what are y'all thinking? What are you seeing? I mean, is this just more of what's to come as things start to align moving into the future and the consolidation, and really just that whole vertically integrated putting all the pieces together under one roof?
I think so. I think that they're just going to, like you said, if they control the customer, they control everything. And it's just like with Zillow. I fired Zillow the first of the year. I've been Zillow's #1 converting agent in Georgia for years since they started the Flex program. And the first of the year, I fired about 15 agents who wasn't producing where my team needed them to, and we fired Zillow. And Zillow was taking like 44% or something of a commission. And when you're running a team that's a 50-50 split, that's a big kick. I think for Zillow and these other ones are running these big commission split models. I think it's going for them to be able to work it. I think they're going to have to buy brokerages. I think that's their next play, because the team splits do not work. With Zillow and Redfin will start the same thing, because I'm sure Zillow's. I looked up their search traffic. Zillow is 365.8 million monthly visits, and Redfin is 87 million. So it's exponentially bigger, but it's what are they going to do with it? That's the question. But they want to control the customer. Now they control the mortgage, they control the lead given, and they're not going to be in the business of selling leads. They're going to do the same thing Zillow does. If I was them.
Yeah. I see more of that going that direction, right? Being able to have the handoff and be able to charge more. So like you said, either start to acquire other brokerages, play that game. Like, it's just going to be really interesting, the next couple of moves over the next 18, 24 months.
Yeah. I think Rocket, this move was it 10x'd their ability. It 10x'd their servicing. So this company they bought was a big servicing entity, and now Rocket owns all that. So when you think about it, they're thinking about where the puck is going, not where the puck is at. When the rates dip, they're going to just cash out like you wouldn't believe, because all those people that they're now servicing those loans on, now they have their data. They can get that refi business. This is a refi move. I don't think this affects us from a residential retail sales standpoint really at all. The next question I think makes sense to ask is, what about the previous acquisition? When they, when Rocket acquired Redfin, what are they going to do with the discount part of that business unit? Are they going to expand on it? Are they going to maintain it? Or are they going to squash it? We know that they did not want to be sold for parts. That was something that the CEO made very, very clear that he went. I'm assuming in the deal there was something written into the acquisition deal that they couldn't be sold for parts, but that was what he knew was going to be happening. They were pretty much sold for parts.
They were sold for
promised
parts.
That they're not going to do anything
for a period of time. Right,
for a period of time. Yeah. So I don't see them trying to expand on it. Rocket, mortgage is based right here in Cleveland. The Cavs play out of Rocket Fieldhouse, and so Dan Gilbert has done amazing things for the city of Cleveland. We're forever grateful for him. But having said that, I don't see, and maybe you guys can push back on us, I don't see a lot of relationships that are, with the top real estate agents in the Cleveland or just the Ohio markets, period. They don't have deep relationships with Rocket Mortgage. They like to send their clients and refer them to mortgage loan officers that have a relationship, that are more one-on-one, that handle everything from beginning to end. And the experience I've seen with people trying to get a mortgage through Rocket, at least on a retail mortgage, not a refi, is that you're passed off 3 or 4 times before the closing happens. So you don't have one point of contact. You have 4 or 5. At least that's just the experience I've heard. So they're trying to get to that direct to the consumer, and really, I just don't see loan officers having relationships with real estate agents where there's this back and forth passing, which is what we're used to. I have a couple loan officers that I would give my business to, and that's it. I'm not spreading my business to 5, 10 different loan officers. I want the ones that are going to give my client the best service rates, response rates, and ultimately get it across the finish line. And Rocket, they just haven't had the best reputation for that, at least from the Cleveland area, which is where they're based out of. So
the last couple of deals I've had with them have been much more fluid, And when you had said that, what makes sense too is like, they want to work with their home lender, but I mean, now they own Redfin. So I'm going to work with what does an agent want more than anything? Leads.
Yeah.
Whoever gives me the leads controls where they go. So if they're giving them the leads and then they get the mortgage on the other side, now they become their preferred lender. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's a play too.
Yeah.
Well,
could be interesting.
Zillow wants the mortgage. You're a Zillow Flex agent. You got to give Zillow a swing at the bat.
They want all the swings, all of them. I bought a mortgage business about 2 months before that started. I'm like, you sell 300 houses a year, and you figure you touch at least half of them with buyers and with the mortgages, and then they do that. And I'm like, oh, it's rough.
Yeah, I bet.
Absolutely. Well, fellas, fantastic as always. Tim, appreciate you, being able to carve out some time, jump in here and really come to what the whole essence of the One Big Fire movement has always been about, right? We can individually burn a pretty bright, flame, but when we come together, man, it's massive. And really appreciate you coming in, sharing a lot of knowledge and definitely perspective that I greatly appreciate and respect. And so I really thank you for jumping in here. And everybody listening in, make sure reach out, connect with Tim, give him some love, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. See ya.